Hello, this is writer-director Andrew Hanna of the feature films The Last Ones, which is a zombie psychological horror. Borderland, which is a mexploitation film about two people who owe a debt to the cartel, and they have until dawn. They have from dusk till dawn. You'll get that in a second, or if you read the title of this podcast, to pay back the cartels. I tried to make it quick, and then I got the Dusk Till Dawn joke in my head, and then I ruined my own podcast. Welcome to the Bomb Squad, where I and my best friend Joshua Epp discuss movies that are either overlooked, overhated, or underappreciated, and we tell you to check them out. And this week, from Quentin Tarantino, from Robert Rodriguez, from Dusk Till Dawn.
From Robert Rodriguez. From Quentin Tarantino. From Dusk Till Dawn.
The old-timey trailers where they had the voice and he would like incorporate the title into the marketing like that is the best. So From Dusk Till Dawn it came out in 1996, and then it was directed by Robert Rodriguez. It stars George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino as the Gecko brothers, two criminals who are on their run trying to get to Mexico. And then it has Harvey Keitel, Juliette Lewis. We're going to take a break here while I find out the brother's name.
I looked up.
Ernest.
I was like,
wait, no. Let me say.
Been in anything?
Let me say his name first. And introducing Ernest Liu, and they play a family called the Fullers, where the dad is an ex-priest, and he's taking an ex-pastor, and he's taking his children on a trip to Mexico for fun. They don't really say why, but yeah, he's had a crisis of faith. Me and Josh being from El Paso, this movie technically takes place in El Paso.
We got about 2 more hours till we get into El Paso, which is right next to the border.
And then they don't ever technically say they're in El Paso and Juarez, but they'd have to be if that was the plan. I always think that was my favorite thing about this movie, that it technically takes place in Juarez and El Paso.
That was one of those things, because I remembered that Kill Bill takes place in El Paso.
Yeah, he loves El Paso. He talks about it a lot.
And it's the same sheriff. But I was like, oh yeah, they're driving through El Paso at the beginning of this. So it's like it was a pleasant discovery.
It's also funny because it seems like Quentin Tarantino loves El Paso. He puts it in a bunch of his movies, either through dialogue or actually setting it there. And I also don't think Quentin Tarantino has ever been to El Paso, because it never, El Paso does not look like what he thinks it looks like.
He basically thinks it's the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid when they get off at the train stop in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Like 3 buildings and a goat. That's what he thinks El Paso still is in the modern day, basically.
Yeah, my favorite is in Kill Bill, where it's just one church in this dusty trail. It's like, okay, guys, we have running water. Okay, so Seth Gecko, who's George Clooney's character, he's a bank robber. He's kind of he's a criminal, but he's not a criminal. He's a bank robber, but he has a set of codes or whatever. And Quentin Tarantino, who plays Richie, who's his brother, he is a full-on, he's a rapist, child molesting.
Yeah, he's deranged.
Yeah.
You don't even, it's they allude to him being severely mentally ill because he imagines women coming on to him and then kills them. But I don't know, it's weird because it's clearly supposed to be the big brother with kind of a troublesome little brother dynamic, but taken to an extreme because they're both criminals, so it's he's kind of a likable one and then he's a total monster. But rewatching it now, older, I'm almost is this too mean-spirited?
At the beginning of the movie, they have taken a hostage when they escaped. And Quentin Tarantino, or Richie, not Quentin Tarantino, Richie, he does rape her to death, and he kills her. And I mean, Quentin Tarantino, his whole career, he's had a history of like getting characters that you shouldn't like and making them likable. But I do agree that as watching it as an adult, because when you're watching it as a kid, I don't know if I really understood what he did to these people. I thought he was just like a killer. But as an adult, there's nothing like once you rape and murder a woman, you don't get to come back from that, you know?
Yeah.
Talking to
like,
you,
oh,
the
what a
boys. Yeah, I think like they do take it too far, and it is because spoiler alerts. I guess if you're reading this, you're doing spoiler alerts anyway. But yeah, Richie dies halfway through as soon as they get to the bar, and like before when I was a kid, I remember being like, oh no. But as an adult, I was like, good. I hate Richie. He sucks. Like there's just nothing. There's even that scene, and they do a good job of separating Seth from Richie.
This is not me. I am a professional fucking thief. I don't kill people that I don't have to, and I don't fucking rape women.
Where once he kills that girl, you can tell that Seth like wants to hurt Richie, but he can't because he's his brother, which doesn't excuse Seth, but it does, like, you do understand him.
He almost sees like guilted. I mean, not just because he's his brother, but he does bring up like, oh, he's the one who broke him out of prison, you know?
Right.
Like, he's the reason, like, he was able to escape. But then there's this kind of weird, like, oh, he has this clearly untreated, like, mental illness that he's killing all these people, and he's just not really controlling him that well, you know?
I do think that Richie is, as an adult watching it again, I'm like, oh yeah, Richie's terrible, and I don't care that he dies.
Yeah.
And again, like Josh was saying, and like just to be clear, like yeah, the scene where Richie kills a woman, that isn't tongue in cheek. That is 100% like serious, and George Clooney treats it like a horrific crime that it is. But as soon as they get into Mexico, it reminds me of, it's metaphorically the scene from Roger Rabbit where he goes into the freeway tunnel and he comes out in cartoon land.
Yeah.
George Clooney seems to be having the time of his life as Seth Gecko. Like, he has a cool tattoo, which is apparently his idea. And he looks cool. He's wearing leather. He's just like, he's head to toe a badass the whole movie. He like beats everyone up that he needs to.
And I think that's why it's such a like, you stick with it in a way where like if he wasn't as cool and charming and like funny as he like is throughout, the fact that it's like, oh, he's dragging along this rapist serial killer with him, like, would be so off-putting that he really does like bring it to like the vampire part. Right.
And like, yeah.
But and it's not even like like it is such like a weird, like, cause he's kind of like a fun character, and then when they get in the bar, like there is the vampires, but every patron of the bar is such a ridiculous character.
Well, and that's why, again, like, if we're talking about what makes good action movies or horror movies or whatever, and one of the best things about Tarantino and Rodriguez, at least early Rodriguez, is that they both have a tendency to make all their characters interesting. Like, there's the character played by Tom Savini, of course, who's probably the most famous, but his name is Sex Machine.
What's your name, Julie?
Kate, what's yours?
Sex Machine. Pleased to meet you, Kate.
And he has like a plate on his crotch that's actually a gun. Yeah.
Pistol, yeah.
And
dick pistol, yeah.
Yeah, and so like, and again, he's just like a character. He's just one of the other survivors who has to fight the night with them. But it is interesting. Like, it could have easily just been a no-name, like, oh, just a random guy who's around. But the fact that they named him Sex Machine, they gave him the crotch gun, and like he has a whip, and like he's like, and then there's the other character played by Fred Williamson, who's not named.
Oh, in the credits, I believe they call him Frost.
Yeah, in the credits, his name's Frost.
The black veteran. Yeah, but
yeah.
I forgot this too, because you always remember Sex Machine because he's like such a character, but right. I was like, oh, the vet who's just trying to play dominoes and getting increasingly frustrated that the strippers keep knocking over his dominoes. It's such a weird idea.
And then he has, like, everyone always remembers Sex Machine because his name is Sex Machine. And then there's a scene where like where he gives his backstory.
What are you talking about?
was in Nam back in 72.
Their sex machine has been bit, and he's like kind of figuring it out. So the volume has been turned down as Sex Machine is like carrying the bats talk to him. And it just cuts to Fred Williamson, and he's like motioning, killing, like stabbing people in the chest, and it just looks so silly. That like, yeah. And again, it would have been so easy to, even if they had made him a veteran, like, oh, this guy's a veteran, it could have been so easily, like, he could have been so easily just a generic veteran. But the fact that they kind of give him these funny lines, and they let him like have fun with the role, from Tom Savini to Fred Williamson, it makes it like, it just adds that extra like personality to the film, which is great. And speaking of that, there's always those lists where it's like, did you know Hannibal Lecter is only on screen for 16 minutes? Or did you know that the T-Rex in Jurassic Park is only on screen for 6 minutes? And it's like, look at what an impact they made. And I feel like nobody ever brings up Selma Hayek in From Dusk Till Dawn, but she's only on screen for like the amount of one song, and she is literally the thing you remember
less
the
than
most.
10 minutes. Well, it is insane. Like I said, she almost looks the same now, but like, it's insane how attractive she is. Like,
Yeah.
just straight up, it's like, oh, this is inconceivable that she let Quentin Tarantino put his mouth on her feet.
Well, and so Selma Hayek plays the head vampire and the head stripper, and they like, there's this big show to kind of bring her out. At Danny Trejo introduces her, and she comes out and she dances. And another funny thing, which if you watch it again, it's funny to even notice, is that apparently they offered her the role, and she said no because she's deathly afraid of snakes. And so they told her that they were going to give it to someone else, and she was like, no, I'll do it. And she actually went to therapy to get over her fear of snakes just to do this role. But yeah, she plays like the head vampire. She does a dance. She ends up at Richie's table.
She becomes a snake-like vampire, too.
Yeah. It's another cool thing about this movie is, again, they could have easily just had all the vampires have like just fangs, which is what most vampire movies do. But every single vampire, like, well, not every single one, but a lot of them like change into different monsters. Like Selma Hayek changes into a kind of bat creature. There's one that's like pregnant, and she has like a big belly that's also a mouth. There's another one when Sex Machine turns, he becomes like a big rat, and then
he's just a vampire, and then Seth decapitates him with his own whip, and then a rat head grows out of the stump, and he becomes like a rat monster. It's it's so bizarre. Like it is very lovingly done, like creature feature. I'm sure Tom Savini worked on a lot of that stuff too.
And even like Tarantino, because Richie gets bit and then he turns into a vampire. When he turns into a vampire, there is a scene where he just has fangs, but they still kind of like, they give him almost like a Frankenstein look where he has like a big head and he has like a big jaw, and like, yeah, they go out of their way to make the monsters all look kind of unique. And I think it just adds, like, there's a band there who are playing like a mariachi band, and then they turn into vampires and they're playing like dead bodies as the guitar. Like, it's just so like original to see all these things.
There actually is a pretty good that whole scene where they're essentially like, oh, we're probably about to die, and then George Clooney is like, oh, well, we have a preacher here. And it's like, it's always weird in movies because I don't know what the exact line is, but he says something like,
I've always said that God can kiss my ass, but I just changed my lifetime tune about 30 minutes ago. Because I know that whatever is out there trying to get in is pure evil straight from hell. And if there is a hell, and those sons of bitches are from it, then there has got to be a heaven, Jacob. There's got to be.
It's like, why in this movie? Like, because that should be a thing. Like, that's something I've always thought about. Like, in these movies where people meet these, like, supernatural creatures, it's like, wouldn't you immediately become the most devout Christian of all time?
Well, and we even...
like, just to be like, oh, magic is real. Okay, you know.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit when we did Mortal Kombat, where they, like, Scorpion comes out and he, like, shows you his hand of a spear, and then Sub-Zero, like, freezes the gun. And then the next scene is Sonya Blade being like, where are we? This is such a weird place. It's like, no, Sonia. You're fighting against monsters. Like, it's time to, like, get on board. And it is kind of refreshing to see Seth, like, immediately be like, oh, yeah,
Like,
these are
logically
vampires.
be like, yeah, clearly, like, God is real, the devil is real.
Which-
Because then after that, too, they're, like, preparing, like, they're putting crosses on the bullets and, like, blessing all the water and
Yeah.
stuff. But, yeah, they weapon up.
They weapon up and then they go fight the last of the vampires. This is another movie where it's like, I don't have any bad things to say about this movie other than the Richie thing, which I just think, I mean, it's not that it's bad. I just think that I don't know. I just don't like Richie. he's a
It's a little too much for, like, what he was clearly going for, but...
Yeah. Which, and again, I understand why he did it. He doesn't want you to, like, fall in love with criminals. But, it's just kind of like a subconscious reminder that even though this is a movie and technically they're the heroes, being a criminal, like, you associate with terrible people. But yeah, so they kill all the vampires, and that's when Carlos comes and Cheech Marin comes. But yeah, another funny thing is that he didn't know that it was a vampire.
It's a rowdy place. It's on the middle of nowhere. There'll be no cops. And it's open from dusk till dawn. Hey, didn't you say you want to meet in the morning? Here we are.
But yeah, again, the reason that I wanted to highlight this movie, because as Josh was saying, I don't think it's necessarily underrated or it's not hated. I don't know anyone who would hate this movie. Although watching it again, I could see, like, if you didn't want to watch a movie where you're actively rooting for, like, a sex pervert. But
especially now where people are a lot more like, oh man, we need to get this out.
Yeah, like, let's not normalize it in any way. But I do think, like, the reason I wanted to talk about it is because of Robert Rodriguez. Like, Robert Rodriguez, not only is he important to a lot of Hispanic filmmakers like myself because of the fact that he is Hispanic, it's also because not only is he Hispanic, but he's Mexican-American. He's very proudly Mexican-American. Like, Robert Rodriguez's Spanish sucks. Like, it's bad. It's bad like mine's bad. And it's not that Robert Rodriguez isn't proud of his heritage or he's not trying to hide it. It's just that, like, growing up in America as a Mexican, it is like there's that famous scene in Selena where they talk about how hard it is to be Mexican-American because the Americans don't accept you, obviously, and the Mexicans don't accept you because you're not Mexican enough. So you're fighting against these two people and you can't be anything, or you don't really ever fit in with any culture because you're like a mix of both. And I feel like Robert Rodriguez being proudly Mexican-American, where, you know, he's proud to be Mexican, but he is firmly rooted in America, is like inspiring. Just to kind of sum things up, I think it's important, like Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado, El Mariachi, they're not like these films that deal with heavy topics. They're just kind of fun action or horror films. And I think, like, even that can be inspiring to the right person, you know, and that's why it's so important to to have that kind of representation. Also, we have a podcast version of this if you want to hear us go more in depth of the movie. So follow us. It's still The Bomb Squad, and we're available on almost all podcast forms. And yeah, hopefully this was fun for you guys. We'll see you next time.